谢谢大家。那么今天晚上呢，本来我们这个环节呢设置了 ，Sorry, can I give me 1 minute?
1 minute. One thing that everybody in this room will understand, but maybe not all of the candidates will, is the concept of guangxi. That doing business in China, you have to develop your relationships first. I know that what was really important for me as Minister of Trade was opening doors for you from the business community. I know that mayors in China have a rather better status than mayors in New Zealand, and mayors can open doors, and if you can use that role to promote New Zealand business and New Zealand trade and create growth and create jobs, then that is a very important role for the mayor. So we shouldn't just throw off at the former mayor for going on some of those trips. I think they are valuable. You say, what would I like to pick up? When I first went to China, I travelled by steam engine. Really, a steam engine. My last trip to China, I saw the Shanghai bullet train, and boy, would I like one of those bullet trains to get from here to Hamilton. That'd be great.
是，那我解释一下，本来我们这个环节呢是设置了15分钟，那我们的候选人们都非常踊跃的发言，所以呢，我们再给大家多一点的时间，有请下一位商家来发言。
The last question we got.
If it's the last one, If it's the last one, I'm going to choose this one. As Aucklander, we are all ratepayers, and I'm going to ask this question. Answer this question. For the last increase of my rate was 50%. Okay, and I've only been here like 10 years. For the next 30, 40 years, if I want to still afford to live in Auckland, maybe ends up I'm paying $50,000 just for my own property. And my question is increasing the rates is going to solve the problem for Auckland? And is this the only way?
Who will going to the answer? Who's the first? Okay, maybe Davey.
Thank you. Look, there's been an ongoing debate about how to fund local government for years now, and there's never been any resolution to this. The big issue that we have now, and we always have, is how the fuel tax is distributed. So there's a local authority fuel tax. Auckland Council gets $3.5 million a year from that at 0.66 cents in the litre, 2/3 of a cent. And then there's a central government petrol tax, which is 67 cents a litre. And so what's happening with the money there is that the government is coming in and it goes, we want to build motorways, like this, with that money. And Auckland is going, we want rail. We want railways. We want trams. You know, there's just the government is spending the money here and we want it spent over there. And if we can work together with the government to organise them, to get them to see what Auckland has been asking for 20 years, the rail network, and to bring them to the table on that, then your rates will be fine. But we really have to put the pressure on the government to let go of the purse strings, to stop building motorways, and to build the rail network that Auckland so desperately needs to become a proper, grown-up city.
Oh, please.
I think the short answer to your question is I want to keep rates low and affordable. I see no reason why in the next couple of years the rate increases shouldn't be as low as 2 to 2.5%. So where's the money going to come from? One of the areas that we have to put pressure on is central government. When we get, Auckland's getting 50% of New Zealand's growth, right? 50% at the moment. That means that the government is a huge beneficiary of that growth. They get a lot more money in GST and a lot more money in income tax. But does that go to Auckland to help meet the pressures of growth? No, it goes to Wellington, and the Wellington bureaucrats spend it. So part of my argument would be to get a fair share for Auckland, taking into account that we're creating the growth and we're meeting the costs of growth. I think the other thing that you have to expect, and that is if we need to spend money on transport infrastructure, there'll be some form of road pricing. It might be a regional petrol tax or it might be a congestion tax. But keeping rates low, that will be a priority.
Okay, Mark.
Short answer to the question is no. 50% is not the future my mayoralty. But whereas Phil talks mainly about wrestling with government, what I want to do is wrestle with council's budget, because that's the thing I know about, and that's the thing I know we can control. So we've seen double-digit rate increases for most Aucklanders every year of this super city, and that's unacceptable. It's because, you know, we've invested $20 million in a whitewater rafting park, $10 million in a theatre, $350,000 on an arts plan, $550,000 on the recent summit. So that's where your money's going, and that's not helping you get around Auckland more quickly. It's not helping younger people get into housing. So we've got to not bang on the door of government first. The first thing we have to do is be more responsible with our budget. I think it's what we do in our households, isn't it? We look at our own spending first before knocking on the door of mum and dad and saying, please, can you help out? So that'll be my focus, to keep your rates down.
Thank you, Mark. 现在呢，我们的这个环节 ，OK，last one, OK. Okay, we still have a chance. We still have a chance.
This is really important. I am the only mayoral candidate who has put my freehold home on the line over rate spending. Where is the money being spent? Why is nobody, apart from me, concentrating on this? Here is the law. The Public Records Act 2005, have you ever heard of it? Section 17, requirement to create and maintain records. Every public office and local authority must create and maintain full and accurate records of its affairs in accordance with normal, prudent business practice, including the records of any matter that is contracted out to an independent contractor. This is what happens. So many services are contracted out. And what happens? We get a highly paid council staff member who says, I'm too dumb to know how to do contract management, so we'll employ a consultant, probably a friend, because who's checking? Then the consultant project manages the works contractor, who then subcontracts. So by the time you get to boots and overalls doing something productive, you might be 4 layers of suits, click, click, click the tickets. International research has proven that contracting out twice as expensive. Twice as expensive. Could we halve the rates by opening the books and cutting out the contractors? And why am I the only one saying this?
Okay, thank you. That's the.
So you want to go first? Look, there's many reasons why rates are going up. One of the main reasons why rates are going up is because of the growth plan. If you look back 5 years, before we were growing so drastically, our rates weren't so high. They've gone up since then. Well, why have they gone up? You know, before we had the amalgamation, we had the 7 councils. Who was the richest council? The CBD was the richest council. So I ask, if the CBD is the richest council, why are we building more and more and more suburbs? When you put 100 houses on one block, in 10 years, when you have to replace that street, 100 houses have to pay for it. Can't afford it. Can't afford the infrastructure. That's what happened to Los Angeles. Los Angeles is bankrupt. It's fully intensified the suburbs, but it hasn't created work areas for people to go to. Then you look at a place like New York. New York's got 2.75 million people on the island alone, but as you get out of New York, it's green until you get to the next CBD. So what happens is those CBDs generate a lot of income, and they don't infill all the rest of it, where it's expensive to manage, expensive to run. So I'm talking about building more CBDs like Albany, Henderson, Manukau, building those up, because those buildings are going to generate a lot of income. You could put a lot of people in those areas, and your infrastructure is much less by doing that. But as you put more and more people into suburbs and building more houses, and that'll happen, that's fine. But as mayor, I'm going to push and drive to build up those areas, because those areas are going to be profitable. That's where you make your money from, not from the houses. The houses can't afford the infrastructure. You have to build more office buildings, more towers, more apartment buildings, but not in the suburbs, because the suburbs can't handle the infrastructure, because the majority of your rates are going now for transport. But transport is telling council, you can't keep building that way. I can't fix the transport. No matter how much money you throw into it, they can't fix it. It's like Los Angeles. They can't fix it. They're bankrupt. Because you keep infilling suburbs, you can't fix it. You can't get the transport there. On my block alone in Kohimarmar, Rose works at the airport. I work down in Takanini. How are you going to get a bus to take us to all those different places? Can't do it. And that's what's bankrupting Auckland, because it's following Los Angeles. And that's where we have to change. Shesha.